I'm Ashley, 26, and 3 months ago my entire reality shattered with a single phone call. After chatting with my parents about my promotion, they thought they hung up but didn't. I sat frozen, phone against my ear, as I heard my father sigh and say, "Living with the knowledge that Ashley will never amount to anything is the hardest part." My mother agreed, adding they were thankful they invested more in Melissa. My sister's sympathetic murmurs completed my devastation. In that moment, I realized my entire family relationship was built on a lie. If you've ever felt that pit in your stomach when you discover someone isn't who you thought they were, especially family, I'd love to hear where you're watching from. This family betrayal changed everything for me. And while you're settling in for this story, please hit that subscribe button. Trust me, the karma that unfolds is something you won't want to miss. Growing up, I always had this nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right in how my parents treated me compared to my sister Melissa. She's 2 years older, and while I tried to dismiss it as normal sibling dynamics or my own insecurity, the evidence was persistent. At Christmas, Melissa would receive thoughtfully selected gifts that aligned perfectly with her interests, while mine seemed hastily purchased from the sale section. When we both made honor roll, my parents would take Melissa out for a special dinner. When it was my turn, there would be a quick good job and maybe ice cream if I was lucky. Despite this, I worked incredibly hard to earn their approval. I maintained near-perfect grades throughout school, participated in every extracurricular I thought would impress them, and was always the responsible child who never caused trouble. I convinced myself that if I just achieved enough, they would finally see me as worthy of the same love they showed Melissa. One memory stands out vividly. During my high school graduation, my parents brought an elaborate bouquet for Melissa, who had graduated 2 years prior because she had just been accepted to law school. My own achievement of graduating as valedictorian was acknowledged with a quick hug and a "we're proud of you" before they returned to gushing over Melissa's accomplishment to everyone at my celebration. Still, I pushed those feelings down, telling myself I was being petty or oversensitive. Family dynamics are complicated, right? Maybe they just connected more easily with Melissa. Maybe I needed to try harder. After college, I made a decision that I knew would disappoint them, but felt right for me. Instead of following Melissa to law school as they had always assumed I would, I pursued a career in digital marketing with a focus on creative strategy. My parents smiled tightly when I told them, saying they supported whatever made me happy. But their eyes told a different story. I moved into a modest apartment in the city to be closer to the creative agencies I wanted to work with. Meanwhile, Melissa secured a position at a prestigious law firm, started dating the son of one of the partners, and purchased a luxury condo in the upscale part of town. At every family gathering, my parents proudly updated everyone on Melissa's latest achievements while politely nodding through my career updates. When I asked my parents for a small loan to help with a security deposit on a better apartment closer to my new job, they apologetically explained that they couldn't help financially right now, but they were so proud of me for making it on my own. 2 weeks later, Melissa casually mentioned during Sunday dinner that our parents had helped her buy new furniture for her condo. Despite all this, I had recently begun to feel that I was finally gaining momentum in my career. After 3 years of hard work, I had secured a promotion to creative strategy director at my agency. This was a significant achievement, especially for someone my age, and would come with a substantial raise. For once, I felt that I had something tangible to share with my parents that even they couldn't dismiss. That's what prompted the phone call that changed everything. I was excited, truly excited, to share my news. I wanted them to be proud. I wanted, just once, to feel what Melissa must feel all the time, their genuine approval and admiration. The call started normally. Mom answered, and Dad joined on their home speaker system. I shared my promotion news, trying to contain my excitement. They offered congratulations that sounded sincere enough. "That's wonderful, honey, and we always knew you were creative." We chatted a bit longer about mundane things, and then said our goodbyes. I was about to hang up when I heard my dad's voice again, but distant now, as if they'd put the phone down thinking the call was over. I should have ended the call immediately. That would have been the right thing to do. But when I heard my name, something kept my finger from pressing that red button, and that's when I heard the words that would replay in my mind for months to come. Is Melissa coming over soon? My mother asked, her voice clearer now that she wasn't putting on the cheerful tone she'd used with me. She said around 6, my father replied. She wanted to tell us about the partner track news in person. That's our girl, Mom said with obvious pride. Always considerate. Not calling with news just to hear herself talk. I felt a sting at that comment, my hand tightening around my phone. Was that what they thought I was doing? Speaking of calls, Dad sighed heavily. Living with the knowledge that Ashley will never amount to anything is the hardest part of being her parent. My heart stopped. I literally felt it skip several beats as those words hit me. I know, Mom agreed, her voice softening with what sounded like genuine sadness. I'm just thankful we invested more in Melissa. At least we'll have one daughter we can be proud of. Marketing, Dad scoffed. Creative strategy. What does that even mean? It's not a real career. Not like law. Remember when she turned down State University's pre-law program? Mom asked. That's when I knew she'd never be successful like her sister. We should have pushed harder, Dad said. We let her make her own choices. And look where that's gotten her. Small apartment, mediocre job, and now she's acting like this promotion is equivalent to Melissa making partner. It's not even close, Mom agreed. I heard the sound of a door opening, and then Melissa's voice joined the conversation. Hey, sorry, I'm a few minutes early. Never apologize for giving us more time with our favorite daughter, Dad said. And they all laughed. My body felt numb, fingers clutching my phone so tightly that my knuckles had turned white. I should hang up. I should hang up right now. But I couldn't move. So, did Ashley call with her big news? Melissa asked, a slight edge to her voice. Yes, Mom sighed. Some promotion at that marketing place. Acting like she's cured cancer or something. Classic Ashley, Melissa chuckled, making a big deal out of nothing. Meanwhile, I'm about to be the youngest partner in the firm's history, and I didn't even call to brag about it. Because you have class, Dad said proudly. You understand the difference between actual achievement and just doing your job. Speaking of the firm, Melissa's voice took on a conspiratorial tone. David's parents want to host the engagement party at their lake house. Is that going to work with the timeline for your anniversary cruise? We can adjust our plans, Mom said quickly. Your engagement is far more important than our trip. We can postpone if needed. I felt sick. Just 3 weeks ago, I had asked if they could visit for my birthday, and they had said the anniversary cruise was already booked and couldn't be changed. Has Ashley mentioned anything about the family reunion next month? Dad asked. No, why would she? Melissa replied. We're announcing your engagement gift there, Mom said excitedly. We've put down a deposit on the down payment for your vacation home. The one near David's parents. Are you serious? Melissa squealed. That's incredible. But can you afford that? What about retirement? We've been saving for this for years, Dad assured her. Ever since you started law school, we knew you'd make us proud, and we wanted to reward that. Years. They'd been saving for years to buy Melissa a second home, while telling me they couldn't help with a $2,000 security deposit. What about Ashley? Melissa asked, though her tone suggested she didn't actually care about the answer. Is she getting something too? There was a pause before Mom replied. We got her a nice gift card to that art supply store she likes. That seems fair, Melissa said, and they all laughed again. My stomach churned as I felt beads of sweat forming on my forehead. My breathing became shallow, and the room started to spin slightly. Between us, Dad's voice dropped lower. I've always found Ashley difficult to love. She's so needy, always wanting validation. I know what you mean, Mom agreed. I pretend to be interested in her creative projects, but honestly, I zone out as soon as she starts talking. At least she's independent, Melissa offered. She doesn't ask for money like some of my friends' siblings. Only because we made it clear early on that our financial support was going toward your education, Dad said. Best investment we ever made. Speaking of finances, Mom transitioned, we should discuss the trust fund distribution before the family reunion. I think we should keep Ashley's portion under your management, Melissa. She'd just waste it on some creative pursuit or other. Trust fund? What trust fund? I'd never been told about any trust fund. Agreed, Melissa said confidently. She's not responsible enough to manage that kind of money. I can make sure it's properly invested. You've always been the sensible one, Dad praised. That's why we're comfortable leaving most of our estate to you in the will. Ashley would just squander it. I felt tears streaming down my face now. But I made no sound. I couldn't risk them hearing me, and knowing I was still on the line. I hate to say it, Melissa continued, but sometimes I wonder if she's even related to us. She's so different, so ordinary. They all laughed again, and I finally found the strength to end the call, my hand shaking violently as I pressed the button. I sat in complete silence in my apartment, the phone falling from my hand onto the couch beside me. My heart was racing, but my mind felt strangely calm. The kind of calm that comes after a devastating truth has obliterated everything you thought you knew. The moment the call ended, I felt like I couldn't breathe. My chest constricted painfully as the reality of what I'd just heard crashed over me in waves. Without thinking, I grabbed my phone again and called Rachel, my best friend since college. They hate me, I sobbed as soon as she answered. My entire family hates me. Whoa, Ashley, slow down, Rachel said, concern evident in her voice. What happened? Through broken sentences and fresh waves of tears, I explained what I had overheard. Rachel listened without interrupting, occasionally making sounds of disbelief and outrage. I'm coming over, she said firmly when I finished. Don't move. I'm bringing wine and I'll be there in 20 minutes. True to her word, Rachel arrived at my apartment carrying 2 bottles of wine and a bag from our favorite takeout place. She took one look at my tear-streaked face and pulled me into a tight hug. Those absolute monsters, she whispered fiercely. I'm so sorry, Ash. We sat on my couch, glasses of wine in hand, as I replayed the conversation again and again in my mind, questioning if I had somehow misunderstood or exaggerated what I'd heard. Maybe they were joking? I suggested weakly. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought? Rachel shook her head. Stop. You know exactly what you heard. Don't gaslight yourself to protect them. She was right. As much as I wanted to find an alternative explanation, the words had been clear, living with the knowledge that Ashley will never amount to anything. I've always found Ashley difficult to love. She'd just squander it. Each phrase was a dagger, precisely aimed and deeply embedded. Over the next few days, I existed in a fog. I called in sick to work, unable to focus on anything beyond the pain consuming me. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by nightmares where I was standing in a room with my family as they talked about me as if I weren't there. Food lost its taste, and I found myself either not eating at all or mindlessly devouring whatever was easiest to reach. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from my parents and Melissa. Mom, Ashley, are you okay? We haven't heard from you in days. Dad, call your mother, she's worried. Melissa, whatever dramatic thing you're going through, maybe consider that other people have actual problems. Mom and Dad are concerned. Each message twisted the knife deeper. Their concern felt like a cruel joke now that I knew the truth behind their facade of caring. I couldn't bring myself to respond to any of them. Rachel checked on me daily, sometimes stopping by after work to make sure I was eating. You need to take care of yourself, she insisted, even if it's just out of spite. Don't let them win. Win what? I asked hollowly. They've already won. They have each other. The perfect daughter and her perfect life. What do I have? You have yourself, Rachel said firmly. And me. And a life that you built without their help or approval. That counts for something. By the end of the week, my parents' messages had grown increasingly worried. My mother even threatened to drive to my apartment to check on me if I didn't call back. The thought of facing them, of pretending I didn't know how they really felt, made me physically ill. I can't talk to them, I told Rachel during one of her visits. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You don't have to, she assured me. But eventually, you'll need to decide what kind of relationship you want with them going forward, if any. That was the question that kept me awake at night. Could I simply cut them out of my life completely? Did I want to confront them with what I knew? Or should I pretend nothing had changed, continue the charade of family harmony while knowing it was all a lie. The crisis wasn't just emotional, it was existential. So much of my identity had been shaped by trying to earn my parents' approval. Without that driving force, who was I? What did I actually want from my life? Separate from the desire to prove my worth to them. Work became another casualty of my emotional state. When I finally returned to the office, I couldn't concentrate. The promotion I had been so proud of now felt hollow. I made careless mistakes, missed deadlines, and snapped at colleagues who were only trying to help. My boss, Diane, called me into her office after I failed to show up for an important client meeting. "Ashley, what's going on?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "This isn't like you." I considered giving her some vague excuse about not feeling well, but suddenly the weight of carrying this secret alone became too much. To my horror, I burst into tears right there in her office. Between sobs, I told her an abbreviated version of what had happened. Diane listened attentively, then handed me a box of tissues. "Family can wound us in ways no one else can," she said gently. "Take the rest of the week off. Get some help if you need it. Your job will be waiting when you're ready to come back." Her kindness only made me cry harder. Why could my boss show more compassion than my own parents? That night, as I stared at my ceiling, unable to sleep, a text from Melissa came through. "Mom and Dad are really freaking out now. Whatever your drama is about, can you just get over it? They're talking about canceling their anniversary cruise to come check on you." Something inside me snapped. The cruise they couldn't possibly reschedule for my birthday, but would instantly cancel for Melissa's engagement party, or because I wasn't answering their calls? The hypocrisy was staggering. For the first time since the phone call, I felt something other than despair. I felt anger. Hot, clarifying anger that burned away some of the fog of pain. And with that anger came resolution. I wouldn't just collapse under this revelation. I would investigate further. I would find out exactly how deep this betrayal went. I had questions now. What trust fund had they mentioned? What else had they been hiding from me? And most importantly, what was I going to do about it? If you've ever had that moment where sadness transforms into determination, let me know in the comments. Sometimes the most painful discoveries become fuel for the biggest changes in our lives. I was about to dig deeper into my family's secrets, and what I found next shocked me even more than what I'd already heard. The anger that had awakened in me became a driving force. If my parents and Melissa had been lying about their feelings toward me, what else had they been lying about? The mention of a trust fund I knew nothing about particularly bothered me. I decided to start digging. I began by methodically going through old emails, letters, and photos I'd saved over the years. In my childhood bedroom at my apartment, I kept a box of family mementos, birthday cards, graduation photos, letters from summer camp. I dumped it all out on my living room floor and started sorting. The birthday cards were revealing in their generic nature, while Melissa's cards, a few of which had accidentally ended up in my collection, contained long, personalized messages about specific qualities my parents admired in her. Mine contained only signatures or brief generic phrases like, "Happy birthday, love Mom and Dad." But it was when I started examining family vacation photos that patterns became undeniably clear. In almost every group shot, Melissa was positioned between our parents, their arms around her, while I stood slightly apart. In some, I appeared to have been an afterthought, as if someone suddenly remembered I should be in the picture too. I moved on to emails. I searched through years of correspondence with my parents, looking for any clues about financial discussions. There was nothing explicit about a trust fund, but I did find an email from 5 years ago where I'd asked for help with graduate school applications. My father had responded that they unfortunately couldn't contribute financially to further education right now due to current commitments. That email was dated just 2 weeks before Melissa started law school. Had their current commitments been paying for her education while telling me they couldn't help with mine? Determined to find more concrete information, I reached out to a few extended family members with careful questions. My mother's sister, Aunt Patricia, had always seemed to have a soft spot for me. I called her under the pretense of gathering family health information for a new doctor. Aunt Patricia, did Grandma Jenkins ever set up any kind of trust or inheritance for the grandchildren? I asked, trying to sound casual. There was a pause on the line. Ashley, honey, you know about the family trust, don't you? Your parents should have discussed this with you years ago. My heart raced. I think they mentioned something, but I'm a bit fuzzy on the details. Could you refresh my memory? Well, she hesitated. Your grandmother set up trusts for all the grandchildren. Each of you was supposed to receive access at 25. You turned 26 last year, so you should have control of yours by now. I gripped the phone tighter. And who managed the trust until then? Your parents, of course. They were the trustees until you came of age. Didn't they transfer it to you last year? I'm not sure about the paperwork, I said vaguely. How much was in these trusts? Approximately. About $200,000 each, plus any accrued interest. Your grandmother wanted to make sure all of her grandchildren had a good start in life, whether for education, a home, or whatever you might need. $200,000. Money that was rightfully mine, that I'd never been told about. Money that could have paid for my graduate school, helped me buy an apartment instead of renting, or funded the small marketing consultancy I dreamed of starting. After thanking Aunt Patricia and ending the call, I sat in stunned silence. This wasn't just emotional favoritism anymore, this was financial deception on a massive scale. That weekend, I made the 3-hour drive to my hometown under the guise of picking up some winter clothes I'd left at my parents' house. They were away on a short trip, which gave me the perfect opportunity to search for documents. In my father's home office, I found a filing cabinet with family financial records. And there it was, in a folder labeled Trusts. Documentation of both Melissa's and my trust funds. According to the paperwork, Melissa had received control of hers when she turned 25, 3 years ago. Mine, however, showed a different story. There were transfer forms and withdrawal records showing that nearly all of my trust had been invested in various accounts I had no access to and had never been informed about. While I was still processing this discovery, my phone pinged with an email notification. It was from my mother, accidentally sent to both Melissa and me instead of just Melissa. Honey, don't forget to bring the renovation plans for your vacation home to the family reunion. Dad and I are so excited to share the news with everyone. We're thinking of using the remainder of Ashley's trust for the pool installation if she doesn't attend again this year. Love, Mom. My hands shook as I read and reread the email. They were planning to use what was left of my money I didn't even know existed until recently to add a pool to Melissa's second home. The betrayal was so complete, so thorough, that it left me breathless. As I was driving back to my apartment, my phone rang. It was my cousin Emma, Aunt Patricia's daughter. Emma and I had been close as children, but had drifted apart as adults, largely because she lived on the opposite coast. Ashley, Aunt Patricia mentioned you were asking about the trusts. Is everything okay? I pulled over to the side of the road, suddenly unable to maintain the facade any longer. No, Emma, everything is not okay, I said, and the whole story came pouring out the overheard phone call, the discovery of the trust, the years of favoritism I'd tried to ignore. When I finished, there was silence on the line. Then Emma spoke, her voice gentle but firm. Ashley, I need you to know something. I've watched how your parents have treated you compared to Melissa for years. Everyone in the extended family has noticed, but no one knew how to bring it up. Everyone knew? I whispered, feeling a fresh wave of humiliation. Not about the trust that's shocking even to me, but about the favoritism, yes. At family gatherings, the way they fawn over Melissa while barely acknowledging your achievements. It's been painful to watch. I should have said something sooner, and I'm sorry for that. Strangely, Emma's confirmation brought relief rather than more pain. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't oversensitive. The differential treatment was real and obvious enough that others had noticed it too. What are you going to do? Emma asked. I don't know yet, I admitted. But I'm not going to pretend anymore. I can't. After our call, I sat in my car for a long time, watching the sunset and feeling a strange sense of calm settling over me. The truth, as painful as it was was also freeing. I no longer had to twist myself into knots trying to earn love that had never been freely given. That evening, when I finally made it back to my apartment, I found myself looking around at the life I'd built. It wasn't extravagant, but it was mine. I had achieved it without parental support or financial assistance. Every piece of furniture, every framed artwork, every book on my shelves I had earned through my own efforts. For the first time since the devastating phone call, I felt a flicker of pride in myself, and with that pride came a decision. I would confront my family about what I knew, not in anger or for revenge, but for truth. I deserved at least that much. I know many of you watching have probably faced painful family revelations of your own. Did you ever discover something that made you question your entire childhood? Let me know in the comments if you've been through something similar. As painful as this part of my journey was, what came next would change everything, and not in the way I expected. After the shock of discovering the trust fund deception, I knew I needed professional help to process everything. The anger, hurt, and betrayal were consuming me, affecting every aspect of my life. On Emma's recommendation, I made an appointment with Dr. Landon, a therapist who specialized in family trauma. What you're experiencing is a form of gaslighting, Dr. Landon explained during our first session. Your parents created a narrative where they presented themselves as supportive while actively undermining you. It's natural to question your own perceptions when the people who should love you unconditionally have been dishonest. Over the next few weeks, our sessions helped me understand the family dynamics that had shaped my life. Dr. Landon introduced me to concepts like golden child and scapegoat relationships, explaining how some parents unconsciously assign these roles to their children. It's not about you being less worthy of love, she emphasized. These patterns often stem from the parent's own unresolved issues. Understanding this doesn't excuse their behavior, but it might help you stop internalizing their treatment as a reflection of your value. With Dr. Landon's guidance, I began developing a multi-part plan for moving forward. First, financial independence became my priority. I closed the joint bank account my parents had set up for emergencies when I was in college. Though there was little money in it, the symbolic severing felt important. I set up a meeting with a financial advisor to discuss my options for potentially recovering my trust fund. Based on what you've shared, you have a strong case for financial malfeasance, the advisor told me. As trustees, your parents had a fiduciary duty to manage that money in your best interest, not their own or your sister's. You could pursue legal action if you wanted to. The thought of suing my parents was overwhelming, but I filed the information away. For now, knowledge was power. Second, I needed to establish clear emotional boundaries. Dr. Landon helped me draft scripts for different scenarios, how to respond to guilt-inducing messages, what to say if confronted about my distance, how to redirect conversations that made me uncomfortable. Your parents have relied on your compliance and desire for approval, she pointed out. When you change the pattern by setting boundaries, expect resistance. They may escalate their attempts to bring you back in line before accepting the new reality. The third part of my plan concerned the upcoming family reunion, which was now just 3 weeks away. I had initially decided not to attend, but after discovering the extent of my parents' deception, I changed my mind. This would be the perfect opportunity for a controlled confrontation. If you decide to confront them, Dr. Landon cautioned, be prepared for denial, deflection, or counterattacks. Have a support system in place for afterward. Rachel volunteered to be that support system, offering to drive me to the reunion and be available by phone if things got too intense. I'll be your getaway driver, she joked, though we both knew her support was deadly serious. As I worked through these plans, something unexpected began happening. With my focus no longer consumed by earning my parents' approval, I found new energy for my own passions. The creative work that had once been a source of parental disappointment became a refuge and joy. At the office, I returned with renewed focus and drive. Diane noticed the change immediately. Whatever you've been doing, keep it up, she said, after I successfully landed a major new client. This is the Ashley I hired. I had also started dating someone, Jake, a graphic designer I'd met through a work project. Unlike previous relationships where I'd unconsciously sought men who were emotionally unavailable, mirroring my relationship with my father, Jake was consistently supportive and present. When I finally told him about my family situation, his response was validating in its simplicity. "That sounds incredibly painful, and they were wrong to treat you that way. What can I do to support you?" No questioning my interpretation. No suggesting I might be overreacting. Just acknowledgement and support. It was refreshing and healing in ways I hadn't expected. 2 weeks before the reunion, I received a text from Melissa. "Mom and Dad are worried you're going to bail on the reunion. Please don't make a scene by not showing up. This is supposed to be a celebration." In the past, this message would have sent me spiraling into guilt and anxiety. Now, I simply responded, "I'll be there." The brevity of my response must have been unexpected, because Melissa followed up immediately. "Really? Great. And you're okay with everything?" "We'll discuss it at the reunion," I replied, then put my phone away. That evening, I attended a support group Dr. Landon had recommended for people with difficult family relationships. Listening to others share similar experiences further validated my own. One woman's story about confronting her emotionally abusive mother particularly resonated with me. "The confrontation itself wasn't the healing part," she told the group. "It was making the decision to speak my truth regardless of how they received it. That's when I started to take my power back." As the reunion approached, I fine-tuned my plan. I decided not to ambush my parents publicly. That would only create drama and potentially alienate family members who might otherwise support me. Instead, I would request a private conversation with my parents and Melissa, present the evidence I had gathered, and clearly state my boundaries going forward. I practiced what I would say with Dr. Landon, working through different scenarios based on how they might respond. We role-played conversations where they became defensive, denied everything, or tried to make me feel guilty. Each practice session built my confidence and resolve. Remember, Dr. Landon advised, during our final session before the reunion, you can't control how they respond. You can only control what you say and how you react. Your goal isn't to change them, it's to speak your truth and establish boundaries that protect your well-being. The night before the reunion, Jake came over with dinner. "Are you sure you don't want me to come with you tomorrow?" he asked. "I'm sure," I said. "This is something I need to do alone, but thank you for offering." We spent the evening together, deliberately not talking about my family or the confrontation ahead. Instead, we watched a comedy, laughed, and enjoyed each other's company. For a few hours, I was just a woman spending time with someone who cared about her, not a daughter preparing to confront decades of familial betrayal. As Jake was leaving, he hugged me tightly. "Whatever happens tomorrow, remember that their treatment of you reflects on them, not on you. You're remarkable, Ashley." I knew it the first day we met. That night, I slept surprisingly well. In the morning, I woke feeling calm and centered. I packed an overnight bag, though I doubted I'd stay the night at my parents' house after our conversation. I also packed copies of all the documentation I'd gathered: trust fund papers, email printouts, even childhood photos showing the pattern of favoritism. Rachel arrived at 9 a.m. to drive me to my hometown. "Ready for Operation Truth Bomb?" she asked with a supportive smile. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, taking a deep breath. "Let's go." As we pulled away from my apartment, I looked back at the life I'd built independently. Whatever happened today, I knew I would be okay. For perhaps the first time in my life, my sense of worth wasn't tied to my parents' approval. That realization itself felt like a victory. The drive to my parents' house took just over 3 hours, but it felt both longer and shorter, that strange distortion of time that happens when you're both dreading and anticipating something significant. Rachel kept the conversation light, occasionally checking if I wanted to review my talking points again. "I'm good," I assured her. "I've rehearsed this so many times I could do it in my sleep." When we pulled up to my parents' colonial-style home, several cars were already parked in the driveway and along the street. The family reunion was scheduled to start at 1 p.m., and it was just past noon now. "Text me if you need an emergency extraction," Rachel said, giving my hand a squeeze. I'll be at the coffee shop 2 blocks away. Thanks, I replied, taking a deep breath. Wish me luck. You don't need luck, she said firmly. You've got truth on your side. I walked up the familiar path to the front door, my overnight bag in one hand and a folder of documents in the other. Before I could ring the doorbell, the door swung open to reveal my mother, her smile slightly strained. Ashley, you made it, she exclaimed, moving in for a hug. I allowed it but didn't reciprocate with much enthusiasm. We were starting to worry when you didn't answer our calls. I've been busy, I said simply, stepping inside. The house smelled like it always did during family gatherings, a mixture of my mother's signature pot roast and the cinnamon candles she loved. Well, you're here now. Everyone's out back. Melissa and David just arrived too. I set my bag down by the stairs. Actually, Mom, before I join everyone, I'd like to speak with you, Dad, and Melissa privately. Is there a good time we could do that? A flicker of concern crossed her face. Is everything okay? We need to talk, I repeated, my voice steady. It's important. Well, I suppose we could step into your father's study now, before everyone arrives. Let me get your father and sister. As she disappeared to find them, I took a moment to center myself. The family photos lining the hallway seemed to mock me now, smiling faces, projecting an image of familial harmony that I now knew was a facade. Within minutes, my mother returned with my father and Melissa in tow. Dad gave me an awkward side hug, while Melissa stood back, arms crossed defensively, as if she already suspected this conversation wouldn't be pleasant. What's this about, Ashley? My father asked as he closed the study door behind us. Your mother says you need to talk to us. I placed my folder on his desk and remained standing, even as they all took seats. 3 months ago, I called to tell you about my promotion, I began, my voice calm despite my racing heart. After we said goodbye, you forgot to hang up the phone. The change in their expressions was immediate. My mother's hand flew to her mouth, my father's face paled, and Melissa's eyes widened slightly before narrowing. I heard everything, I continued. Every word you said about me being a disappointment, about being difficult to love, about how thankful you are that you invested more in Melissa. Ashley, my father started, his tone conciliatory. You must have misunderstood. I didn't misunderstand anything. I cut him off, reaching into my folder and pulling out my phone. I recorded the last part of what I heard, after I realized what was happening. This was a bluff. I hadn't actually recorded them, but the panic on their faces told me they believed it. That's illegal, Melissa jumped in. You can't record people without their consent. Actually, in this state, only one party needs to consent to a recording, and I consented, I replied, having researched this specifically for this moment. But whether I recorded it or not isn't the point. We all know what was said. My mother was crying now, though whether from genuine remorse or embarrassment at being caught, I couldn't tell. We were just having a bad day, she pleaded. We didn't mean those things. You meant every word, I said quietly. And that conversation led me to look more closely at our family dynamics, which is how I discovered this. I pulled out the trust fund documentation and placed it on the desk. Grandma Jenkins left each grandchild $200,000. Melissa received hers 3 years ago. Mine has been systematically drained for purposes that benefited Melissa, not me. My father's expression hardened. Your grandmother left the distribution to our discretion. No, she didn't, I interrupted again. I've spoken with the family attorney. The terms were clear. The money was to be transferred to each grandchild at age 25. There was no provision for trustees to reallocate funds between beneficiaries. Melissa stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. Mom and Dad have always supported both of us. If they helped me more, it's because I chose a path that required more investment. Law school isn't cheap, and my dreams weren't worth investing in? I asked, looking her directly in the eye. Or was it that I was never considered worthy of investment in the first place? That's not true, my mother protested weakly. Isn't it? Let me remind you of your exact words, Mom. You said you were thankful you invested more in Melissa because at least you'll have one daughter you can be proud of. The room fell silent. My father cleared his throat. What do you want from us, Ashley? Money? Is that what this is about? The question stung, but I kept my composure. What I want is acknowledgement of the truth. I want you to admit that you've consistently favored Melissa throughout our lives. I want you to acknowledge that you misappropriated funds that were legally mine. And I want you to understand that our relationship will be very different going forward. Different how? My mother asked anxiously. I'm setting boundaries, I explained. I won't participate in family events where my achievements are diminished while Melissa's are celebrated. I won't pretend that we're a perfectly happy family when we're not. And I won't accept being treated as less valuable or less worthy of love and support. You're overreacting, Melissa scoffed. This is just attention-seeking behavior, is it? I pulled out more papers, printouts of emails discussing the vacation home down payment and pool installation using my trust fund money. Is it attention-seeking to want the money that was legally left to me? Is it attention-seeking to expect parents to love their children equally? My father's face had turned red. This is not how we raised you to behave, he said, his voice rising. Coming in here with accusations and demands. You're right, I agreed calmly. You raised me to be compliant, to accept less than I deserved, to blame myself when you withheld love and support. I'm not doing that anymore. So what now? My mother asked tearfully. You're just going to cut us off? Abandon your family? I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm establishing healthy boundaries. Whether we have a relationship going forward depends entirely on your willingness to respect those boundaries and acknowledge the harm you've caused. Just then, there was a knock at the study door, and my Aunt Patricia poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but guests are arriving, and, oh my, is everything okay in here? My father forced a smile. Everything's fine, Patricia. We're just having a private family discussion. We're discussing Ashley's trust fund, I corrected him. The one I was supposed to receive control of last year but somehow didn't. Aunt Patricia's eyes widened. Richard, you told me you'd transferred that to Ashley months ago. The look on my father's face confirmed everything. This wasn't just preferential treatment, it was deliberate financial deception that extended beyond our immediate family. I think we should continue this conversation later, my father said tightly. We have guests. No, I said firmly. We're finishing this now. I'm not interested in pretending everything is fine for the sake of appearances. I turned to Aunt Patricia. I'm sorry you had to witness this, but perhaps it's better to have everything in the open. Aunt Patricia looked between us, clearly uncomfortable but also concerned. Richard, Margaret, what is going on? My mother burst into fresh tears, and my father looked away. Melissa stepped into the breach. Ashley is making ridiculous accusations because she's jealous of my success, she declared. Now she's trying to ruin a family celebration out of spite. Aunt Patricia frowned. That doesn't sound like Ashley. It's not, I confirmed. I have documentation of everything I'm claiming. I gestured to the papers on the desk. I didn't want to involve the extended family, but I'm done protecting people who haven't protected me. My father finally seemed to realize the seriousness of the situation. Ashley, please. Let's discuss this privately. As a family. We are discussing it as a family, I replied. But I'm done with the discussion for now. I've said what I came to say. I gathered my documents back into the folder. I won't be staying for the reunion. I've made my position clear, and the ball is in your court now. As I turned to leave, my mother grabbed my arm. Please don't go, she begged. We can work this out. I gently removed her hand. I hope we can. But that will require honesty and accountability from all of you, and I'm not seeing that yet. I looked at each of them in turn. I love you. Despite everything, I do. But I won't accept being treated as less than anymore. With that, I walked out of the study, past the gathering relatives whose curious gazes followed me, and out the front door. Once outside, I took a deep breath of fresh air that seemed sweeter than any I'd breathed in months. I texted Rachel, mission accomplished, ready for extraction. As I waited for her to arrive, I felt lighter than I had in years. The confrontation hadn't gone exactly as planned. They hadn't immediately admitted everything and apologized profusely, but I had spoken my truth clearly and set my boundaries firmly. For now, that was enough. The immediate aftermath of the confrontation was even more chaotic than I had anticipated. Before Rachel could arrive to pick me up, my phone erupted with texts and calls not just from my parents and Melissa, but from various family members who had been at the reunion. My father's text was terse. "Your behavior today was inexcusable. We'll discuss this when you've calmed down." My mother took a different approach. "Please come back inside, sweetheart. Everyone is asking where you went. We can talk about all of this later as a family." Melissa's message was predictably defensive. "Congratulations on ruining yet another family event. Mom is crying and Grandma is asking questions no one wants to answer. Hope you're happy with yourself." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I sat on a bench near the end of the driveway, waiting for Rachel while attempting to process the whirlwind of emotions coursing through me: relief, vindication, guilt, sadness, and an unexpected sense of peace. As family members departed from the reunion, several stopped to speak with me. My cousin Thomas gave me a supportive nod but didn't say anything. Aunt Patricia actually sat down beside me for a few minutes. "I always suspected things weren't entirely fair between you girls," she admitted quietly. "But I never imagined it went as far as misappropriating your trust fund. That's not just unfair, it's illegal." "I don't want to sue my parents," I told her. "I just want them to acknowledge what they did and make it right." She patted my hand. "Sometimes people need a serious wake-up call before they can face uncomfortable truths about themselves. You were brave today, Ashley." When Rachel finally arrived, I climbed into her car with a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. "How did it go?" she asked anxiously. "About as well as a confrontation with manipulative parents can go," I replied. "They denied, deflected, and tried to make me feel guilty. But I said what I needed to say, and I think some of it might have gotten through." "Did they admit to taking your trust fund money?" "Not in so many words, but they didn't deny it either, especially once Aunt Patricia confirmed I should have received it last year." I leaned back against the headrest. "Can we stop for food? I'm suddenly starving." Over burgers at a local diner, I filled Rachel in on all the details. She listened attentively, occasionally interjecting with supportive comments or outraged exclamations. "So what happens now?" she asked as we finished our meal. "Now we wait," I said. "The ball is in their court. They can either acknowledge what they did and try to make amends, or they can double down on their denials and manipulations. Either way, I've said my piece and set my boundaries." In the days that followed, the family split into distinct camps. My mother's siblings, Aunt Patricia and Uncle David, reached out with messages of support, as did several cousins. My father's side of the family largely remained silent, though I received a surprisingly warm email from my grandfather expressing concern about what he'd heard. My parents attempted different strategies to regain control of the situation. My father initially tried anger, sending a lengthy email accusing me of being ungrateful for all they had sacrificed for me over the years. When I didn't respond, he switched to damage control, offering to discuss the trust fund situation if I would agree to keep the matter within the family. My mother vacillated between tearful voicemails, begging me to call her, and text messages, minimizing what had happened. We all say things we don't mean when we're frustrated, and every family has its ups and downs. Melissa took her campaign public, posting vague but pointed comments on social media about toxic family members who create drama for attention and the importance of forgiveness. Several relatives liked these posts, while others commented with questions about what was happening, which Melissa pointedly ignored. Through it all, I maintained my silence on social media and responded to my parents' messages only with brief, factual statements reiterating my boundaries. "I'm open to discussion when you're ready to acknowledge what happened, or I need time and space right now." About 2 weeks after the confrontation, I received an unexpected message from David, Melissa's fiancé. "Can we meet for coffee? There's something I think you should know." I was hesitant but curious. David and I had never been close. He'd always seemed like an extension of Melissa, adopting her opinions and attitudes. But something in the tone of his message suggested this was important. We met at a quiet cafe, halfway between our respective workplaces. David looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his coffee cup and glancing around as if worried about being seen. "Melissa doesn't know I'm meeting with you," he began, "and she'd be furious if she found out." "Why are you here then?" I asked. He took a deep breath. "After what happened at the reunion, things have been intense. Melissa has been obsessed with damage control, spending hours on the phone with your parents planning how to handle you." "Handle me?" I repeated. "Their words, not mine," he clarified. "But that's not why I wanted to talk to you. The thing is, I've been having doubts about Melissa for a while now. The way she talks about you, the way she expects your parents to fund our lifestyle." He hesitated. "The person I've seen these past few weeks isn't someone I'm sure I want to spend my life with." "I'm sorry," I said, genuinely meaning it, "but I'm not sure why you're telling me this. Because I thought you should know that the perfect life Melissa has, the one your parents seem to value so much more than yours, it's not real. She hates her job at the law firm but is too afraid of disappointing your parents to quit. Our relationship has been on the rocks for months, and the lavish lifestyle, it's all funded by your parents and credit card debt." This revelation shouldn't have surprised me, but somehow it did. I had always imagined Melissa as completely content in the golden child role, reaping all the benefits of my parents' preferential treatment. The idea that she might be unhappy in her own way hadn't occurred to me. "Thank you for telling me," I said after a moment. "But why now?" David looked down at his hands. "Watching how they've all responded to your confrontation, it's opened my eyes to dynamics I didn't fully recognize before. The manipulation, the guilt trips, the financial control disguised as generosity." He met my gaze. "I guess I wanted you to know that you're not crazy. What you're standing up against is real. And it's not just about you." After meeting with David, I felt a strange mix of emotions. There was validation in having another insider confirm the toxic family patterns I'd identified. But there was also an unexpected twinge of empathy for Melissa, trapped in a golden cage of our parents' making, perhaps just as damaged by their conditional love as I had been, though in different ways. That evening, I received a formal letter from a family attorney. My father had agreed to transfer what remained of my trust fund, approximately $80,000, to an account in my name. The letter included a settlement agreement which, if signed, would release my parents from any further financial claims related to the trust. I forwarded the letter to the independent attorney I'd consulted earlier. "This is a start," she said when we spoke the next day, "but it's less than half of what you're entitled to. And the release they want you to sign would prevent you from seeking the rest." "What would you advise?" I asked. "Legally, you have a strong case for recovering the full amount plus interest. But lawsuits against family members are emotionally costly, even when you win." She paused. "What matters most to you here, the money or the acknowledgement?" It was a question I'd been asking myself ever since the confrontation. The money was significant. It represented opportunity and security that had been wrongfully kept from me. But more important was what it represented. My parents' obligation to treat me fairly, to respect my autonomy, to acknowledge my worth. "Both," I answered honestly. "I want what's rightfully mine, but I also want them to understand why what they did was wrong." I composed a careful response to the attorney's letter, accepting the initial transfer as a good faith first step, but declining to sign any release until the full amount was restored or adequately explained. I copied my parents on the email. My father called almost immediately. "This is about more than money for you, isn't it?" he asked, his voice lacking its usual authoritative edge. "It always has been," I confirmed. "The money is just the most tangible evidence of the deeper issue." There was a long pause. "I need time to think," he finally said. "To process everything." It wasn't an admission or an apology, but it was the first indication that my words had actually penetrated. That perhaps, just perhaps, change might be possible. As the weeks passed, a tense new normal established itself. My parents and I maintained limited contact, brief, civil exchanges about practical matters, with the deeper issues simmering unaddressed beneath the surface. Extended family members continued to take sides, though some who had initially defended my parents began to ask more questions as details of the financial situation emerged. Melissa and I had no direct contact at all. According to Emma, who remained a valuable source of family information, Melissa and David had postponed their engagement party indefinitely, citing scheduling conflicts but really due to escalating relationship problems. Through it all, I maintained my boundaries firmly, but without malice. This wasn't about punishment or revenge, it was about truth and respect. And for the first time in my life, I was prioritizing my own well-being over my parents' approval. Family systems don't change overnight, Dr. Landon reminded me during one of our ongoing sessions. What you're seeing now, the chaos, the realignment, the questioning of long-established patterns, this is what healthy change looks like in a dysfunctional system. It's messy, but it's progress. Sitting in her office, I realized with some surprise that I was no longer consumed by anger or hurt. Those emotions still surfaced occasionally, but they no longer defined me or my days. Instead, I felt increasingly focused on building my own life, nurturing my career, deepening my relationship with Jake, strengthening friendships with people who genuinely supported me. I told Dr. Landon with a small smile, I'm finally learning who I am outside of being the disappointment, the scapegoat, the less favored child. And I like that person. So do I, she replied warmly. She's been there all along, just waiting for the chance to emerge. 6 months after the confrontation at the family reunion, my grandfather's 80th birthday approached. Despite the ongoing tension with my parents, I decided to attend the celebration out of genuine love and respect for him. He had been one of the few family members who had consistently shown interest in my life and achievements over the years. I arrived at the country club where the party was being held with Jake by my side for moral support. We had been dating steadily for months now, and his unwavering support through all the family drama had only strengthened our relationship. Ready for this? He asked, squeezing my hand as we walked into the venue. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied, taking a deep breath. The room was already filled with relatives. I spotted my parents standing near the bar, their postures stiffening slightly when they noticed my arrival. Melissa was across the room, deep in conversation with a cousin. David was noticeably absent. They had officially ended their engagement a month earlier. Our interactions were civil but strained. My mother hugged me briefly. My father offered a formal handshake, and Melissa managed a tight smile from across the room. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't openly hostile either. Progress of a sort. The event proceeded normally until after dinner, when my grandfather stood to make a speech. He thanked everyone for coming and reflected on his 80 years of life. Then, unexpectedly, he cleared his throat and addressed the room more seriously. Family is the most precious gift we have, he began, his voice strong despite his age. But a family is only as healthy as the truths it's willing to face. The room grew quiet. I've been aware for some time of a situation that has caused pain and division among us. I've remained silent too long, hoping it would resolve itself. That was a mistake on my part. My heart began to race as I realized what was happening. My grandfather was looking directly at my parents now. Richard? Margaret? He addressed my father and mother? I've been deeply disappointed to learn how Ashley has been treated over the years. The favoritism shown to Melissa, while not unusual in some families, crossed a line when it extended to financial matters. My mother gasped softly. My father's face hardened. As many of you know, my grandfather continued, I revised my will last month. What you don't know is why. I've restructured my estate to ensure genuine equity among my grandchildren, not based on their parents' preferences or manipulations, but on what is rightfully theirs. Murmurs rippled through the room. I sat frozen, unsure whether to be mortified or vindicated. This isn't about money, my grandfather clarified. It's about justice and acknowledgement. No child should grow up feeling less valued than their sibling. No parent should play favorites to the extent that it damages their child's sense of self-worth. He turned to look at me directly. Ashley, I want to publicly apologize for not speaking up sooner. I saw what was happening, and I remained silent out of a misguided desire to avoid conflict. That was cowardice on my part, and I am sorry. Tears filled my eyes at this unexpected public validation. Jake's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently in support. I hope, my grandfather concluded, that this family can heal from these wounds. That requires honesty, accountability, and genuine change, Not just empty words or temporary peacekeeping. The remainder of the party was subdued. Some relatives avoided me entirely, clearly uncomfortable with the public airing of family dysfunction. Others sought me out, expressing support or sharing similar experiences from their own branches of the family tree. As the event wound down, my father approached me as I was preparing to leave. "Could we speak privately?" he asked, his voice lacking its usual confidence. Jake glanced at me questioningly, and I nodded to indicate I would be okay. "I'll wait by the car," he said, kissing my cheek before walking away. My father and I stepped onto the terrace outside the banquet room. For a long moment, he just looked out at the landscaped grounds, seemingly gathering his thoughts. "Your grandfather has always been a principled man," he finally said, sometimes uncompromisingly so. "Is that a bad thing?" I asked. He sighed heavily. "No, I suppose not." Another long pause. What he said in there, about favoritism, it wasn't entirely wrong. I remained silent, letting him find his way through this difficult admission. "I don't think your mother and I fully realized what we were doing," he continued. "Melissa was always so easy. She wanted exactly what we wanted for her. You were more challenging, more independent. Being different doesn't mean being less deserving of love and support," I said quietly. He nodded slowly. "I can see that now, or I'm trying to." He turned to face me directly. "I'm not good at this, Ashley. Admitting mistakes has never been my strength, but I am trying to understand how our actions affected you." It wasn't the full apology I had hoped for, but it was more reflection and acknowledgement than I had ever received from him before. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "It means a lot." "About the trust fund," he began. "We don't have to solve everything tonight," I interrupted gently. "This is a start. We can address the practical matters later." He seemed relieved, and for the first time in months, I glimpsed the father I had always wanted him to be: flawed, but capable of growth, human rather than infallible. As we prepared to rejoin the party, my mother approached hesitantly. She had clearly been crying. "Your grandfather's speech," she said, dabbing at her eyes. "It was quite something." "Yes," I agreed simply. "I never wanted to hurt you, Ashley," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I never thought of it as favoring Melissa. I just thought." She trailed off. "You thought what?" I prompted. "I thought she needed more help. That you were so capable, so self-sufficient." She shook her head. "But that wasn't fair, was it? We should have supported both of you equally." "Yes, you should have," I agreed, not unkindly. Would you consider coming to dinner next week?" she asked tentatively. "Just to talk? The three of us?" I thought about it for a moment. "I think that would be okay," I said. "But I'd like to bring Jake, if that's all right. He's important to me, and I'd like you to get to know him." "Of course," she agreed quickly, perhaps too quickly. But it was a step. As we walked back into the banquet room, I noticed Melissa standing alone near the gift table, looking uncharacteristically vulnerable. On impulse, I approached her. "Quite an evening," I commented neutrally. She nodded, not meeting my eyes. "Grandpa certainly knows how to make a statement." "Are you okay?" I asked, surprising myself with the genuine concern in my voice. She looked up then, her expression a mixture of defiance and uncertainty. "Why do you care? Aren't you enjoying your moment of vindication?" "It's not about winning or losing, Melissa," I said. "It never was." "Easy for you to say now," she replied bitterly. "You got what you wanted. The family's sympathy, Grandpa's favor, Mom and Dad's guilt." "Is that what you think I wanted?" I asked, genuinely curious about her perspective. She shrugged uncomfortably. "Didn't you?" "No," I said simply. "I wanted acknowledgement of the truth. I wanted equal treatment. I wanted to stop pretending everything was fine when it wasn't." "Well, mission accomplished," she said with a humorless laugh. "Nothing is fine now." "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," I suggested. "Maybe we needed to break apart the false version to have any chance at building something real." She was quiet for a moment, considering this. "David left," she finally said. "Did you know?" "I heard," I acknowledged. "I'm sorry about that." "Are you?" she challenged, but without her usual venom. "I thought you'd be happy to see my perfect life falling apart." I never wanted your life, Melissa. I just wanted my own life to be valued. Something shifted in her expression, then a softening, a moment of genuine reflection. I hated my job at the firm, she confessed suddenly. Every day was miserable. But I couldn't quit because it would disappoint Mom and Dad. I finished for her. She nodded, looking almost surprised at my understanding. They had invested so much in my law career. Emotionally, financially, the golden cage, I murmured. What? Something my therapist called it, the trap of being the favored child. You get more love and support, but it comes with impossible expectations. For perhaps the first time in our adult lives, Melissa and I looked at each other with something approaching real understanding. We weren't friends, and the damage between us wouldn't heal overnight. But in that moment, we both recognized how the family dynamics had hurt us both, albeit in different ways. Do you think we could ever? I don't know. Start over? She asked hesitantly. I don't think we can erase the past, I replied honestly. But maybe we can build something different going forward. Something more authentic. She nodded slowly. I'd like to try. As I left the party with Jake a short while later, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. The confrontation 6 months ago hadn't produced the immediate validation and apology I had hoped for, but it had set in motion a process of truth-telling and reevaluation that was slowly transforming our family system. How are you feeling? Jake asked as we drove away. I considered the question carefully. Hopeful, I finally said. Not naive, I know we have a long way to go. But for the first time, I feel like genuine change might be possible. Your grandfather was amazing, he commented. He was, I agreed. It meant everything to have someone finally acknowledge the truth publicly. You know what I think? Jake said, glancing over at me with a warm smile. I think you're the one who made that possible. Your courage in speaking up is what gave him the courage to do the same. I hadn't thought of it that way before, but there was truth in what he said. My decision to confront the dysfunction had created ripples throughout the family system, challenging long-established patterns and opening space for new possibilities. Maybe, I acknowledged, but it doesn't feel like courage most of the time. It just feels like finally respecting myself enough to demand the truth. That, Jake said, reaching over to take my hand, is exactly what courage looks like. 1 year after the fateful phone call that changed everything, my life looks dramatically different in all the best ways. My career has flourished beyond what I could have imagined. The creative agency where I worked promoted me again, this time to creative director. After a campaign I designed won a prestigious industry award. My confidence in my professional abilities has grown exponentially now that I'm no longer seeking validation from people who couldn't or wouldn't give it. Even more exciting, I recently launched a small side business offering creative marketing consultancy to startups and nonprofits, the dream I once thought impossible without financial support. It's still in its early stages, but I've already signed 3 clients and have a waiting list growing. The remaining portion of my trust fund, which my father eventually transferred to me in full, with interest, provided the seed money I needed to get started. Financially, I'm in a better position than I've ever been. I moved from my small apartment to a comfortable condo in a neighborhood I love. It's not as luxurious as Melissa's place, but it's mine, bought with my own money, and the inheritance that was rightfully mine. There's something deeply satisfying about that knowledge. My relationship with Jake has continued to deepen. 6 months ago, during a weekend trip to the mountains, he proposed with a simple but elegant ring that perfectly suits my taste. We're planning a small wedding next spring, intimate and authentic, focused on celebrating our love rather than impressing anyone else. The transformation in my family relationships has been more complex and nuanced. My parents have been attending therapy both individually and as a couple at my grandfather's insistence. Progress has been slow and sometimes painful, but genuine. We now have dinner together once a month, with clear boundaries and expectations on all sides. My father still struggles with direct emotional expression, but has made remarkable progress in showing respect for my choices and accomplishments. Last month, He asked thoughtful questions about my new business venture and even offered some useful contacts from his years in corporate finance. My mother has worked harder to understand the impact of her past behavior. I never realized how much my words mattered, she confessed during one particularly honest conversation. I thought I was being supportive by not pushing you, but I can see now how that felt like indifference. We're not perfect, and there are still moments of tension and old patterns that threaten to resurface. But there's a new foundation of honesty and mutual respect that makes those moments easier to navigate. We may never have the warm, effortless closeness that some families enjoy, but we've found a way to maintain connection without sacrificing authenticity or self-respect. Surprisingly, my relationship with Melissa has undergone the most dramatic transformation. After ending her engagement to David, she went through what she calls her quarter-life crisis, quitting the law firm, traveling solo for 2 months, and eventually finding work at a legal advocacy nonprofit that aligns with her values, rather than her parents' expectations. I never realized how much I was living for their approval until I saw you living without it, she told me during a sisterly coffee date that would have been unimaginable a year ago. Watching you stand up for yourself gave me permission to question whether I was actually happy. She's dating someone new now, a public school teacher with no family connections or prestigious degrees, but who makes her laugh and supports her authentic self. Our parents were initially skeptical, but have gradually come to accept her new direction. Beyond my immediate family, I've built a strong network of chosen family friends like Rachel, who stood by me through the darkest times, colleagues who recognize and value my contributions, Jake's wonderfully straightforward and loving family who welcomed me without reservation. My relationships with Aunt Patricia, Uncle David, Cousin Emma, and my grandfather have deepened, based on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than obligation. The accidental phone call that revealed my parents' true feelings was devastating in the moment, but it ultimately led to liberation. Hearing their unfiltered thoughts about me was painful beyond words, but it freed me from the exhausting pursuit of approval I was never going to receive. It allowed me to see clearly what had always been hidden beneath polite facades and familial obligations. In therapy, I've come to understand that what happened wasn't really about me at all. My parents' inability to love me unconditionally reflected their own limitations, their own unresolved issues, their own narrow definition of success and worth. That understanding doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps me contextualize it and move forward without carrying the weight of their judgment. The journey hasn't been easy. There were days when the pain felt overwhelming, when I questioned whether confronting the truth had been worth it, when I longed for the comfort of denial and pretense. But those moments grew less frequent and less intense as I built a life based on authentic self-worth rather than external validation. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that sometimes the most painful revelations lead to the most profound growth. Sometimes you have to hear the worst truth before you can begin living your best life. And sometimes the family you build through choice and mutual respect is as important as the one you're born into. As I look toward the future, my upcoming wedding to Jake, the growth of my business, the continuing evolution of my family relationships, I feel a sense of peace and possibility that once seemed unattainable. The pain hasn't disappeared completely, but it no longer defines me. Instead, it has become part of the foundation upon which I'm building a life of authenticity, purpose, and joy. Have you ever experienced a painful family truth that ultimately led to growth and healing? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more content about family dynamics, personal growth, and finding your authentic path. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey. And remember, sometimes the most difficult revelations become the greatest catalysts for positive change. Your support means the world to me, and I hope my family story has offered some comfort or inspiration if you're facing similar challenges in your own life.